train is coming now. This girl has got me waiting in vain. Say that she causing me all kind of emotional pain. Mr. Ken Book, come tell her before we go on the train. Yeah. The train is coming, baby. The train is coming now. The train is coming, baby. The train is coming now. So long I've been waiting for you. Oh Lord, now the time has come when it's between you and me. Oh Lord, because the train is coming, baby. I said the train is coming now, 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 now. I said the train is coming, baby. And I am leaving on that train, Lord.
Oh, mommy, love you, but me nah come back. Stand up on the station with me suitcase pack. Y'all me love you, but me nah come back. Wait till me right now, this minute where they coming or not. Stand up on the station at about 6 o'clock. Rain it a pour a lightning start to flash. I'm on one to make sense whether she coming on as a it's about time my man wake up and face the path that she find a new love and it's all in her back. That is why I'm standing by myself on a railroad track. Put the book back, heart a beat non-stop. There's no wonders of sight. Are you coming back?
I said the train is coming, baby. I said the train is coming now. Every day I pray for this little power. Oh yeah. Now the time has come, and I want you to stand by me. Because the train is coming, baby. I said the train is coming now, 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 now. And we will roam this land where we all will be free, Lord.
Look how long she have the general await. Time around. Sing the song. All the me suitcase
I
back.
said the train is coming, baby. I said the train is coming now. I said the train is coming, baby. I said the train is coming now. So long I've been waiting.
is protecting our people. And that's why, long before the US and Israeli action last weekend, we had already deployed additional military capabilities to the region to defend our interests. And I want to pay tribute to our brilliant armed forces. Throughout January and February, we were moving defensive assets to Cyprus, missiles and systems to take down drones, to ensure we were in a heightened state of readiness in advance of any conflict beginning. When the strikes began on Saturday, we immediately put those jets into the sky on a mission to protect our people and our allies in the region. And that is what they have done, flying over Cyprus and the wider region, shooting down multiple drones, at least one of which was heading towards a base housing British military personnel. Our jets were in the sky again last night over Jordan, Qatar, and other partners, refueling in the air to prolong their mission. And we're constantly resupplying our jets and our missile stores. And we are responding to requests from allies in the region for further help. I can announce today that we're sending 4 additional Typhoon jets to join our squadron in Qatar, to strengthen our defensive operations in Qatar and across the region. Wildcat helicopters with anti-drone capabilities are arriving in Cyprus tomorrow. The Defence Secretary is on the ground in Cyprus right now, coordinating our work and meeting our brave servicemen and women. We're deploying HMS Dragon to the Mediterranean. And we have allowed the US to use British bases to conduct defensive operations, to take out Iranian missiles before they're fired at our people and our allies. We will maintain this shield over British people in the region and our allies. We are working to strengthen it every day. And we're working as fast as possible to get our people out. As of today, over 140,000 individuals in the region have registered their presence, enabling us to get them the information and the support that they need. We have rapid deployment teams on the ground in Oman and Saudi Arabia. And our consular teams are helping hundreds of the most vulnerable individuals. Despite airspace closures, we're working around the clock with airlines, travel companies, and governments to open safe routes home. More than 4,000 people have now arrived back in the United Kingdom on commercial flights from the UAE, including vulnerable Brits identified by our teams. A further 7 flights are due to leave the UAE for the UK today. And I can report that our first charter flight from Oman took off a few minutes ago. We will lay on additional charter flights in the coming days. British Airways is putting on daily flights from Oman, and we will keep working with all of our partners to increase the speed and capacity of this airlift. I want to be very clear. This is a huge undertaking. It's one of the biggest operations of its kind, many times bigger than the evacuation from Afghanistan. It's not going to happen overnight, but we will not stop until our people are safe. I also want to say a word about the economic impact. Iran is targeting oil and gas facilities in the Gulf and tankers in the Straits of Hormuz, trying to inflict economic pain around the world. So we will continue to work with the industries affected and our allies to respond to any impact. And this is where the long-term changes that we're delivering for the British people are paying off. We have the right plan for defence, delivering the biggest increase in defence spending since the Cold War to strengthen our armed forces and keep people safe. We have the right plan for our economy. As the Chancellor said on Tuesday, we're sticking to that plan so we can cut energy bills and help keeping families with the cost of living and helping them. We also have the right plan for our energy supplies, building up clean British energy like never before, decreasing our dependence on volatile international markets, and creating the energy security and independence that we need. Faced with this new geopolitical crisis, the sad fact is that some will try to use it to divide us. That's why the government is reaching out to communities across the United Kingdom, Jewish and Muslim alike, making sure that communities and places of worship have appropriate protective security in place. But look, as a nation, we should come together in this moment. Those citizens that are stuck in the region, scared and in need of help, come from all backgrounds. The armed forces who protect them come from all backgrounds too. We are united by our common humanity and our love of this country. This conflict could continue for that your government is resolute in our response, at home and abroad. We will do everything we can to protect British lives, uphold British values, and safeguard the national interest. Thank you. And now take some questions. And I've got Chris, BBC first, please.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason at BBC News. Can you address directly those at home and abroad who see your response and see indecision, prevarication, and a lack of preparedness? Thank you.
Yes, let me address that, because as I said a moment ago, February, particularly to Cyprus and Qatar, and that was fighter jets, air defence missiles, advanced radar, and anti-drone systems. Now, we did that during the course of 8 or so weeks. We did that in conjunction with the US and with our allies, and we continue to bolster the capability that we have there to keep our people safe. So there's been a lot of pre-planning gone into this, a lot of pre-deployment that's gone into this, and I'm satisfied that we can keep our people safe, and we're working very hard to make sure that wherever people have registered their presence, we can help them with the information that they need and the support they need, and get them back to the United Kingdom as quickly and as safely as possible. Thank you, Chris. Robert Peston, ITV.
Yeah, Robert Peston, ITV. Prime Minister, I was very struck by your choice of words. You said that you stand by what you called your initial decision not to join the offensive operations of Israel and America against Iran. Does that mean that decision is subject to review? You're concentrating at the moment on defensive military activity, but could it turn into offensive activity?
Well, as you will understand, we're working with our allies and with the US on this. We've been doing that for some time. The pre-deployment was done in conjunction and in discussion with our allies and with the US. And we have that capacity in the region that we pre-deploy to the region, and we're bolstering that in the way that I've set out today. The US are using the basis to do these strikes into Iran to take out the capability to launch the strikes in the first place. So that is the configuration, that is the understanding and arrangements that we've got in place. Thank you, Robert. Beth, can I come to you?
Oh, thank you, Prime Minister. This escalating war is really frightening people that are watching today. President Trump says it will go on for 4 to 5 weeks. You've just said it will be some time. Do you have any sense of how long it could go on for? Do you agree with President Trump? What's your message to the British people worried about how it's going to affect their lives? Can you give them any reassurance that you'll help them on energy prices? And just secondly, on military operations, there's much unhappiness that military personnel and their families were left unprotected on the Cyprus airbase that was struck at the weekend. What went wrong? And do you apologise to them? Thank you.
Well, Beth, let me set out my number one message, which is that our absolute priority is the safety of our citizens. And that is the focus for all the decisions that I have taken, including the decisions to pre-deploy in the way that I've described, and the decisions we're taking every day in order to deal with the situation on the ground in the region, the consular work to get people safely back home, and also what we're doing within the country, obviously, in relation to the division that can arise in situations like this. In relation to Cyprus, we've obviously had an airbase there for a very long time. There are protective measures in place, have always been in place. It's always been a protected airbase. It's not something new to protect the airbase. We pre-deployed further assets to Cyprus in January and February for that purpose, and we're bolstering that. So I want to be really clear to everybody in Cyprus that we're taking every measure that is needed to protect them, to protect the airbase, along with the other places in the region. Thank you very much, Beth.
Do you think it will go on?
Oh, I'm sorry. In relation to how long it will go on, I do know people are worried. They are going to be worried about the any escalation. I think they can see what's unfolding on their television screens. That will cause them anxiety, understandably. They will be worried about the impact on their own lives that this could have, and those with family and friends in the region will be extremely worried about their family and friends in the region. I absolutely understand that. We are doing everything we can to de-escalate this. I can't give you a time base for this. I don't think anybody can. My strong view is that when you de-escalate, and ultimately this will have to be a matter of negotiation when it comes to some of the core issues like nuclear capability. Thank you, Beth. Paul McNamara, Channel 4. Paul.
Afternoon, Prime Minister. Look, there are reports that you walked into a meeting, the National Security Council on Friday, with one opinion and had your mind changed by Ed Miliband and others in your cabinet. So is it true that you wanted on Friday to give Americans a precautionary permission in the event of Iranian reprisals to use British bases for defensive action, but had your mind changed by Ed Miliband and other members of your cabinet?
Let me be really clear about this. No request from the US came in the specific terms that we acceded until Saturday afternoon. Saturday afternoon. Well, just hear me out. And therefore, on Friday, there was no concrete decision to be made. The decision had to be made when we had the request. That came in on Saturday during the course of the afternoon. We're already taking measures in relation to our own capability. That came in on Saturday afternoon, late in the afternoon. We then, as you would have expected, went through the details with the US over the next day and ultimately reached a decision on Sunday, which I announced then on Sunday evening about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. But actually on Friday, we didn't have a request from the United States, and therefore no decision fell to be made. Decision fell to be made when we had the request. That was Saturday afternoon. We then worked it through. Decision on Sunday, which was a decision of all ministers, unanimous, that we should take the action that I then announced. Thank you very much indeed. Catherine from GB News.
Thank you, Catherine Forster, GB News. Prime Minister, Cyprus, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates and others are being critical of the speed of our response. Have we let our allies and our own people down in the Middle East? We've still got a warship sitting in Portsmouth. And also, you said yesterday how in Munich you said we need to go further and faster on defence spending, but getting to 3%, let alone 3.5%, seems to have been kicked way into the long grass. When is your rhetoric actually going to be matched by the reality of when you're putting money into defence?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I know you'll have heard me say a moment ago, we started pre-deploying in January and February our assets to the region to make sure that we had the capability that we needed there. That wasn't an isolated set of decisions. It was done in conjunction with the US, in conjunction with our allies, and we're bolstering that again. And therefore, I can say we're doing everything and have done everything we can at speed to make sure that we are properly protecting our citizens, which is my number one concern. And that's why it's very important that I set out the pre-deployment measures that we took. Can I also say on defence spend, we've obviously already increased our defence spend with the highest spending now on defence since the Cold War. And I've set out when I was at NATO summit last year and at Munich this year that we need to go further and faster, and that's what we'll do. Thank you very much, Catherine. I've got Stephen from the Times. Stephen.
Prime Minister, Donald Trump has suggested that you've ruined the special relationship, that you are no Churchill. On the special relationship, is he right on that? Have you ruined the special relationship?
Look, the special relationship is in operation right now. We're working with the Americans in the deployment from our bases. We are working together in the region, the US and the British working together to protect both the US and the British in joint bases where we're jointly located. And we're sharing intelligence on a 24/7 basis in the usual way. That is the special relationship. That is a special relationship in operation. And clearly it's for the president to take decisions that he considers in the national interest, the right decisions for the US. I understand that, I respect that. But equally, it's for me as the British Prime Minister to take decisions that I consider to be in the best interest of the United Kingdom. There's nothing controversial about that. The special relationship is operating right here at an important point. Thank you very much, Stephen. Pippa from The Guardian.
Yes, Prime Minister. As you said, a lot of people are very concerned about this conflict escalating. Has Donald Trump given you any insight into what his plan is for what comes next after the initial bombing phase? And are you convinced he has a plan? And if I can just push on the defence spending point, because increasing in defence spending to 3% of GDP by 2030 would take up all real terms growth, unless, of course, you're raising money elsewhere to pay for it. Are you going to raise money to pay for it, or are you going to make cuts elsewhere?
Firstly, on the risk of escalation, clearly that is a concern for everybody. It will be a concern for everybody who is watching and across the country. And that's why we've been absolutely clear that we need to de-escalate. In relation to discussions with the Americans, obviously they're happening at all levels. I've had discussions with President Trump, but all of my team are having discussions all the time with the Americans about the operation. In relation to defence spending, we've set out our plans for the increase that we've already put in place. I've made commitments at the NATO summit last year and at the Munich conference, and I was clear then that we will need to go further and faster. Thank you very much, Pippa. And Sophie from the Mirror. Sophie.
So the current situation in the Middle East could potentially lead to the displacement of millions of people in the region. Are you expecting this to play out in more asylum claims, including small boat arrivals from the region? And are you concerned that cuts to the international aid budget could impact the UK's ability to handle situations exactly like this? And if I can also just ask, have you spoken to Donald Trump since his criticism of you?
In relation to the situation that's developed, obviously, we don't yet know how long this will last. We don't know what the full impact will be, and therefore we'll have to address those considerations as we get to them. And we will, because we are planning both the immediate day-to-day response, but also looking at the further scenarios into the future. In relation to Donald Trump, I spoke to him on Saturday evening this last weekend. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you.
Well, that was the Prime Minister Keir Starmer ending that press conference and the questions that he was asked by the media. So let's just bring you a couple of the top lines from that press conference. He's very clear about the purpose of the press conference, and it was very much to reassure those who are worried, members of the public who are worried. He very early on defended the decision of the government not to join those initial US-Israel strikes on Iran. He said, "My focus is on providing calm, level-headed leadership in the national interest." He also went on to say that he wanted to have the strength to stand firm in our values and principles, no matter the pressure to do otherwise. Let's cross live now to Damien Grammaticus, our political correspondent, who can just bring us a bit more detail about what we heard there from the Prime Minister. Damien.
That's right, Mariam. Well, a couple of specific things that the Prime Minister spoke about there I think are worth highlighting. So one is that British Airways evacuation flight, or the flight that the UK government had sent to Oman, which failed to take off yesterday. Sorry, I thought that might be the Prime Minister coming back there, but which failed to take off yesterday. The Prime Minister announced has now taken off and is in the skies coming back. So that obviously will be a big relief for those there and the families waiting here. And the Prime Minister talked about that evacuation effort and spoke about the size of it, the magnitude of it. He said that this is, I think he said this is a huge undertaking. We will not stop, but it's not going to happen overnight. So that's one thing. The other thing I think is important is he's talking in that context about the criticism about the forces he sent to the region and how prepared they were, that he has now sent more. So it is 4 aircraft, so 4 RAF Typhoon aircraft, he said, have been sent to Qatar to reinforce the UK forces there, based there. So that's another sort of specific commitment. And then I think, interestingly, I mean, on that question about, his decision making and whether he had his mind swayed, he kind of sidestepped that by saying there hadn't been a specific request from the US until the one about providing defence, and then all the cabinet were united.
Okay, Damien, I'm afraid we're out of time this half hour, but thank you for that brief synopsis. Do stay with us here on BBC News. More analysis of the impact of this Iran conflict coming up after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
With me in the studio is Siavash Ardalan from the BBC Persian service. Hello to you. Very difficult at the moment to get a picture of what is being hit in Iran because
interrupting the game for just a moment here because there is major breaking news at this hour. ABC News has just learned that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is believed to have been killed in the attack in Iran. President Trump just moments ago confirming the news in a social media post. Killed in that attack led by U.S. and Israeli forces. The 86-year-old cleric had served as supreme leader since 1989, more than 30 years. The U.S. and Israel say they targeted Khamenei and the rest of Iran's top leadership in massive strikes that began early this morning. Israel saying just hours ago that it would continue to target the regime until it has been eliminated. Our Rachel Scott asking the president in a phone conversation late today how long this would last. He said that the outcome, the timeline of this could depend on when we confirmed, the U.S. confirmed, that the supreme leader was in fact dead. Also, Rachel asking the president who will lead Iran next. President Trump telling Rachel that he did not want to explain, but that we have a beautiful plan. I want to get right to our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, live at the White House tonight. Mary, what have you learned?
David, the president announcing Khamenei's death in a lengthy social media post just now. I want to read through to you what the president is saying. He says, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans and those people from many countries throughout the world that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei and his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems. And working closely with Israel, there was not a thing he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. Night shortly after this attack for regime change. The president saying this is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. The big question has been, what does that look like? How does the U.S. and how does President Trump envision that playing out? The president says that hopefully the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves. But David, the president concludes this statement by saying that the heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world.
For days and weeks to come. And Mary, once this attack was underway today, the president with a stark warning to the American people about U.S. troops.
Yeah, and David, the president, of course, remember, he has long promised not to drag America into We do not know how long this is going to go on, whether this will indeed be a long, protracted, prolonged war. The president making clear for now the attack, the strikes will continue, but there are still so many basic fundamental questions about what comes next and what role the U.S. is going to play in the future of Iran, David.
Again, we're going to get back to this hockey game in just moments here. Mary Bruce live at the White House. Mary, thank you. I want to bring in our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, from the region tonight. Ian, President Trump moments ago confirming that the supreme leader of Iran is dead.
Yeah, a truly momentous day. If anyone had any doubts what this operation was really about, well, now we know it is regime change. And that has seemed clear pretty much since the first early hours this morning when the president made that pre-recorded address. The attacks have not stopped coming all day from Iran. We're in an air raid shelter at the moment. We're getting air raid alerts about every 10 to 15 minutes. And that's been the case throughout the day, multiple attacks. I think there are a lot of questions now. What comes next inside Iran? Remember, it wasn't just about the supreme leader. It was about an entire edifice that ran the country for almost 50 years since the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. The Israelis are also saying that a significant number of Iran's defense leadership have also been killed in strikes that have taken place today. But there is this enormous security apparatus that has bought in to the regime, the IRGC. The president's talking about them being part of the solution. I think many Iranians, especially those who've given up their lives in recent weeks to call for change, will see the IRGC as part of the problem. Then you have the Basij, this paramilitary force, who are the brutal enforcers out on the streets. You sometimes see them on motorbikes, shooting people at point-blank range, driving into crowds. There is a lot there. There are a lot of people who had a vested interest in the current system, and it won't just be a case of decapitating the leadership and hoping that everything changes. All power, all violent power, in other words, all arms belong in the hands of the regime. The opposition doesn't have any power. But make no mistake, I think for so many Iranians, this is going to be a truly emotional day. This is a day that they've been waiting for so many years, a sign that finally, perhaps, the regime is coming to an end. And wherever this ends up, however many days it takes, the shape of the Middle East will have changed forever. David.
Our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, coming to us live. That's from an air raid shelter. He's reporting from Israel tonight. Ian, thank you. One more note on this from Rachel Scott, because Rachel spoke with President Trump late today. Rachel, he told you that he was with the generals when you were on the phone with him. You asked if the supreme leader was dead. He said, we believe he is. He didn't want to confirm at that point on the phone with you, but he must have seen the evidence right there in front of him where he was gathered with the generals and now has confirmed it for the American people.
Yes, David, it was clear that the president was monitoring the situation. He told me flat out that he was surrounded by the generals. He said, we believe the supreme leader is dead, but he wanted to wait. Now the president giving that confirmation to the American people. David, I also asked the president, why now? Was there an imminent threat to the United States? The president told me he believed, quote, there was a threat. He went on to praise Operation Midnight Hammer that happened months ago. But again, the president had insisted that the nuclear sites were completely obliterated The president acknowledged that, but then he said that Iran was trying to build back. He says that would pose an imminent threat to the United States. And then, of course, I asked him that question, what happens now, David? What exactly happens now? Who takes over Iran? The president said that he didn't want to get into that, but said we, quote, have a very beautiful plan, David.
And of course, that beautiful plan would go up against whatever the regime had planned itself in case this actually happened. Obviously, they knew that the supreme leader could be targeted at some point. That, in fact, played out today with this U.S. and Israeli attack, and whether or not the regime has plans for who they believe should take over next and how this works over these next couple of days and weeks ahead. You asked the president about a timeline. He wasn't comfortable offering a timeline here either.
No timeline on just how long the United States could possibly be involved in this. The president said earlier, speaking to other reporters, that he believes that he has multiple off-ramps here. But David, what is clear, there is a lot of questions ahead, including the involvement of U.S. troops potentially on the ground, David.
But again, the big news, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, is dead in a U.S.-Israeli strike. Our thanks to Rachel Scott, Ian Pannell, the entire team with us here today, Mary Bruce at the White House, our whole team standing by for a special edition of World News Tonight, right after the hockey game tonight. And of course, stepped up security across the United States. We'll get into that reporting tonight as well, and whether or not they believe there is
abiding by the same rules. I'm done for now.
There's nothing that I saw.
It doesn't matter. We all are abiding by the same rules. I'm done for now.
There's nothing that I saw.
It doesn't matter. We all are abiding by the same rules. I'm done for now.
There's nothing that I saw when I was around him that made me realize he was trafficking women.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear?
The Clintons testifying about convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. What one of America's most powerful couples say they did and didn't know or do.
No one is above the law, especially presidents.
Only now can we scour the body language, peer into their eyes, and begin to imagine what it might be like if President Trump was ever forced to do the same. Let's start with Bill Clinton Exhibit A, a mystery photo in a hot tub, recently released in the FBI's Epstein files. Whoever the former president is relaxing with, their face is backed out. For the first time, something of an explanation.
So do you recall the details of this photo, recall the photo being taken?
No, I don't think I ever knew the photo was taken.
Clinton was on a trip to Brunei for his AIDS foundation. Mr. Epstein had been there too.
We went out, I swam around, I sat in the hot tub for 5 minutes, I could go whatever it was, and I got up and went to bed.
More on Mr. Epstein in a moment. But first, or at least a, very uncomfortable $1 million question, the likes of which Mr. Clinton has been asked before.
And then I have to ask this, did you engage in any sexual activity with this person? Great. Thank you.
Clinton told the hearing at the time he had no knowledge of Epstein's sex crimes.
When did you first learn of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes?
I think in 2008 when he was prosecuted. There's nothing that I saw when I was around him that made me realize he was trafficking women.
So for the record, you never discussed anything related to Mr. Epstein and young women or girls?
Absolutely not.
I first came across Ansarada in 2014. It was a corporate finance deal we were working on for a solar developer in the UK. A colleague asked the lawyer we were dealing with, do you have a data room provider you prefer working with? She answered Ansarada. She described it as the Mac equivalent to a lot of the Windows platforms that were out there. Robust, intuitive, and easy to use. And as soon as we had the demo, I think we were sold on it. One of the great things about the Ansarada support service is, one, that they're always very friendly, which isn't necessarily the case that I can speak for myself at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday trying to get a deal closed. But the sort of follow the sun model that Ansarada has implemented, whereby if you phone at 5 o'clock, you'll get someone in London, phone after 7 o'clock, you'll be speaking to someone in New York, and then in the early hours of the morning in London, someone in Melbourne or Sydney. It's been absolutely fantastic, and it's always good to be able to speak to good, conscientious people that want to help at the end of the phone line, especially when the person phoning them at 4 o'clock in the morning isn't normally at their most proactive, shall we say. My name's Keith Driver, and I'm a Pathfinder.
You, just you, building your app on base 44. Describe it. And it's real. One thought leads to more thoughts. Layer by layer, taking shape. When you need your tools, bring them in. They just click. Okay, kick it up a notch. Create something smarter. Something powerful. Style counts, so give it your touch. Big or small. Next idea hits at 2 a.m. Of course it does. Keep building. Ask yourself, wait, I built this? Damn right. Base 44. Build it your way.
Well, at least one of the survivors claims that you flew in a helicopter with Ghislaine Maxwell to the island.
Did you ever? Then I did not do that. I've never been to that island.
One thing Clinton and Trump have in common, they both spent time socially with Epstein. Clinton claiming that at one point, Trump had remembered Epstein fondly.
Donald Trump would come out and play a few holes with us. And he somehow knew I had flown in Jeffrey Epstein's aircraft, and he said, we had some great times together over the years, but we fell out, all because of a real estate deal. And he said, I'm sorry it happened. That's all.
Trump has previously said he'd fallen out with Epstein not about business, but the financier's treatment of women and girls. Clinton had begun his testimony by reading a prepared statement, which included a robust defense of his wife.
She had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing.
Unlike her husband, Hillary claims to have never met Epstein, although she did know his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell.
I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his. Add to that.
The politics of seeing the Clintons before the Republican-controlled House Oversight Committee are, of course, not far from the surface. Many Democrats claim it's a smokescreen to try and shield Trump. And beyond what we actually learned last week, there was the theater of it all.
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
I have
There
another.
are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please explain how that
I'm done
occur?
with this, Tim Home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the
record. Oh, for heaven's
So I would
sake.
like to understand how that's permissible.
Before the hearing was. It doesn't
Excuse
matter. We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So
well.
I would like to take a break at this moment.
Yeah,
I'd like to have
I'm
a
done
conversation.
for now.
Mrs. Clinton, one of many Democrats, who's saying if she and her husband had to testify, President Trump should too.
Right. So, joining me to dig into what we learned, all the way from Washington, D.C., Lauren Windsor. She is an advocacy journalist. You may have followed her work, and a communications consultant. Lauren, thanks a lot for finding time to help us make sense of this. I guess the big question, are we any closer after the Clintons decided to talk? Are we any closer to President Trump either being asked to or agreeing to appear?
Absolutely not. And, I think that the only way that happens is, when Democrats retake the House in in January when a Democratic majority is seated.
Are you banking on that for that to make the change?
It's the only scenario in which Trump is going to actually sit to be deposed. There's no other way that he comes in. I mean, I think it's clear that Republicans don't have any appetite to call him. And
even if the Democrats do retake the House and then the committee and the Oversight Committee, that still doesn't mean he would show up, right?
Right. I mean, he will, I'm sure, use every executive privilege to say that he does not have to come in to face questioning.
Pretty awkward moments for Bill Clinton too, around the jacuzzi and what may or may not have happened between him and the person that he's pictured in there with.
I've said from day one, I don't care if it's a Democrat or if it's a Republican. I think that they all need to burn. If they were having sex with underage, with girls, with minors, that they need to be held accountable for that. And if Bill Clinton did, then he needs to face accountability. Both he
It's a
and
very
Hillary
firm denial, wasn't it? But he has made firm denials of a similar nature in the past.
Certainly, but I mean, we also don't see pictures of him on the island. We don't see pictures of him at the ranch. Was he pictured on the plain shore? And he also explained those things, and I think explained them pretty fulsomely. And again, I would say if there's proof that he did it, then hold him accountable.
Well, lots of people who protest their innocence, who nonetheless may face further questions. One of the remarkable things, I guess, about the entire appearance is the theatre of it, the personal and the political. What did you make of Hillary storming out? Was that manufactured, or did you buy it?
Is there some flair to it? I'm sure there is, but I definitely felt her aggravation with different lines of questioning, whether or not it was from Lauren Boebert or Nancy Mace. I'd be irritated too if I had really never met the guy.
I think a lot of people will watch, see it as political theatre and an attempt not so much as to answer the questions, but to try and compel the current president, to be summoned.
It's certainly political theater. Everyone is making moves to either increase the pressure or alleviate it, right? And that, I should say, that's not all Republicans. I think Thomas Massey has been very courageous in taking the stand that he has, and I hope that he and Congressman Khanna will continue to hold folks accountable no matter what side of the aisle that they're on. I do think they've both been really good about saying, let's pursue every lead wherever it goes. We don't really care to protect anybody. Let's out everyone. So. And I think that's really where the pulse of the country is. Anyone who, when I talk to voters, when I talk to average people, people are angry about it. If there's one thing that can unify this country, it's that pedophiles should be held accountable. You would be unwise to be a politician and not tap into that.
Lauren Windsor, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Appreciate it.
I've been searching for right word for someone like you. And now that I found you, please be true. My search is over, and I'm so glad now that I found you. I can't forget those lonely nights, but now they're gone. Now that I found you, now that I found you. All those lonely days and nights are gone from me now. There's only happiness in my heart for you. Now that I found you, there's only happiness in my heart for you. Now that I found you, there's only happiness for you.
For their job, right? Sort of new buzzword in this government of infrastructure, right? And then you go away and you blame the local authorities, you blame Ishkieran, you blame the NTA, you blame Commissioner Planola, you blame everyone. Sort of new buzzword in this government of infrastructure, right? And then you go away and you blame the local authorities, you blame Ishkieran, you blame the NTA, you blame Commissioner Planola, you blame everyone. Minister, I don't know, do you get it, right? Or do you think that we're all fools over here? Because I tell you this, we're not fools. We know what's happening. Year in government, Fine Gael 15 years, Fine Fall 11 years, all these problems were caused by ye. They weren't caused by us, they were caused by ye. And now you're coming up with this new infrastructure plan, right? Like, you're trying to pass the buck. Will someone in this government ever stand up and take a responsibility for their job, right? Because at the end of the day, you're responsible, and instead of providing solutions, we're on the opposition benches here, we're trying to give you solutions. We want to work with you, because you know why we want to work with you. Because the people we represent have no housing, they can't get a hospital appointment, there's a crisis in this country. But instead, you know what you done? You brought out a new shiny booklet, it looks great, 140 pages. 140 pages, right? 110 of them are telling us the problems why we have a crisis and emergency in housing. But it doesn't say that you were in power for the last 15 years. You're blaming everyone else. There's 30 actions in this plan in 30 of the pages, right? I tell you now, you must be trying to destroy the rainforests in the Amazon. 140 pages for what, right? Because this government, I'll give you one of the action plans here you have, right? For delivering housing. This is one here. This is one of the, this is going to fix the housing crisis. To enhance government communication. Seriously, that's one of your things. And the other one is to promote the importance of infrastructure delivery. Are you serious? Can you seriously stand over that, Minister? Just kind of bull out here. People are crying out for homes. We have nearly 6,000 children homeless. There's people living in box bedrooms, 3 generations. People are crying out. There's towns and villages can't build a house because they have no wastewater, right? And then you're talking about better communications. Will you build houses? Will you get Irish water, deliver water, and the infrastructure we needed? And don't be blaming the NTA, don't be blaming the Scara, don't be blaming the TII, and certainly don't be blaming on Commission on Penola. For years you underfunded them. For years you knew there was a backlog and you did nothing. I know you're coming up with this document saying it's this is what we're going to do. Do your job and build houses, because that's what you need to do. That's what the people want you to do. We'll actually work with you. Because I tell you, Minister, I don't believe you want to solve the housing crisis. Because if you did, you wouldn't be bringing stuff like this that are nonsensical.
What do you fancy for dinner, babe?
Carbonara. Al dente.
Ciao.
Carbonara. Grazie.
Ciao. Oh. Delicious.
I was just hoping it was as good as your mum's.
It's just the same.
An Iranian jet over Tehran. In the video, the pilot can be heard saying, "Target down" in Hebrew, with flames trailing from the Iranian jet as it rapidly descended towards the ground. This marks the first air-to-air combat we've seen images of in the conflict. Meanwhile, US Central Command has released footage online showing its operations continuing. These images show American forces striking what they say are Iranian mobile missile launchers. No location has been provided. Also, US forces have struck the Azadi Stadium in Tehran, with this video showing plumes of smoke after a large explosion. And the sound of explosions have been heard again in Tehran this afternoon as Israel launched another wave of strikes in the capital, targeting what it says was infrastructure belonging to the Iranian authorities. The Israeli military says it's now completed its 12th wave of attacks on Tehran. You're watching Sky News Today.
The Institute. So what are they thinking about in Beijing? They're in a panic, Jesse. I mean, look, anytime you have these kinds of military operations that are taking place, they have ripple effects. These ripples are actually tidal waves in China. Think about it. Over the last 58 days, between what happened in Venezuela and what started happening in Iran, China has lost two of its most important allies in the developing world. They were big energy suppliers, about 20 to 25% of their energy. But China was able to buy that energy on the cheap because they were sanctioned companies. They were paying $15 a barrel less than anybody else was. And by the way, they weren't paying in US dollars. They were paying in the Chinese currency. And that has been a long-term objective of China to move away from a dollar-based economy. That is all gone. But it's having effects that we don't even fully appreciate, Jesse. Look at the AI race. You think, what does this have to do with AI? Well, two of the biggest AI contractors in China are Huawei and ZTE. These are big telecom infrastructure companies. They're vital to China's AI capabilities. They both have huge contracts in Venezuela and Iran for which they are now not going to be paid. And you know, we're talking about tens of billions of dollars in contracts of revenue that they were expecting to get that they weren't getting. They were doing a lot of AI testing in these countries. So the ramifications are enormous, and Donald Trump has really shifted the equation with China within a matter of less than 2 months.
And we're testing our AI in real time under extremely dangerous conditions. So we're getting even more intelligence than they would ever get tinkering around on a computer. The fact that now we control anything that ships out of that strait, so much oil flows out of that strait to the whole world. The fact that we now control it, what does that do to China?
It now means we have a chokehold on the strait. Look, assume that China wanted to move on Taiwan, right? There's a military response, but now we have a massive energy response, which is we simply don't allow any tankers to ship oil from the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. We can do it. It might have been a little bit dicey had we not taken out the Iranians. That's roughly half of their oil. 40 to 50% of their oil is now suddenly not available to them. So those are enormous methodologies. And look at what happens in terms of military technology, Jesse. China provided their most advanced air defense capabilities to Iran. We completely destroyed them. They didn't shoot down one American or Israeli plane. This is reminiscent of 1982 when the Israelis flying F-15s went up against the Syrians flying MiGs, and the Israelis beat them 81 aircraft to 0. What happened after that? They couldn't give the MiGs away. So China now has the problem that their military technology is not recognized as being up to par to the United States. That's going to have huge implications with a whole host of other countries.
Right. So they lose a bunch of customers and they lose face. Now that the United States, if this mission is successful, now we have no idea how this is going to play out. We're praying it works out. If it's successful, what kind of position does that put the United States of America with Venezuela and now Iran more in our orbit?
Well, it means that a lot of countries in the developing world that might have been flirting with China don't want to flirt with them anymore because they realize that, A, China can sign all the quote-unquote strategic partnerships they want, but they're not going to do anything about it if their allies get in trouble. I mean, all China's done is send some scolding messages. They haven't done a single thing to stand up for their allies. Second of all, they understand that you know, this administration is the partner that they want to be in business with, not Beijing.
Wow. It is a new world order, that's for sure. Peter, great to talk to you. Thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox
that amount to war crimes and possible crimes against humanity. In a report out today, the UN found more than 6,000 people were killed in the first 3 days of the Rapid Support Forces offensive in El Fasher, which is in Sudan's northwestern Darfur region. It's been nearly 3 years of relentless conflict in Sudan, and it has triggered the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Amna Nawaz filed this report earlier.
This week, hundreds of shelters at a displacement camp in the North Darfur region of Sudan were burned down, pushing an already traumatized people through more hardship. What began as a power struggle between Sudan's military and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces has now become one of the world's gravest humanitarian crises. Nearly 2/3 of Sudan's population now need assistance, with hunger rising, health systems shattered, and families fleeing across borders. Veteran journalist and humanitarian Ann Curry has made her way to South Sudan, is at a camp for displaced people, and joins me from there now. So Ann, you're there on the border with Sudan and South Sudan. What more can you tell us about the impact this war has had and the state of that war today?
Well, as you well know, NewsHour has been reporting, in fact, that this catastrophic war in Sudan has caused the world's largest humanitarian crisis, and it has got unprecedented numbers of displacement, recently rising to 13.6 million people, and many are fleeing to neighboring countries, and about 1 million years ago on them.
But can you tell us more about where exactly you are and what you're seeing there?
I'm on the border of Rink in South Sudan. It's in the northern most part of South Sudan, and this is where people, survivors, have been arriving by bus and by car, by donkey cart and by foot, and they're arriving hungry and thirsty, and they're in need of desperate need of shelter. But there is a massive gap now, as you well know, as you've been reporting, between the need, the desperation here, and the humanitarian funding cuts, especially from the United States. And this has caused a lot of extra suffering here. I can tell you, I'm walking into a transit center, which was set up by UNHCR, which is the United Nations Refugee Agency. And this center was built to house 3,000 people, and they were supposed to be here just for a few days, and they're given blankets, and they're given tents, and they're given basic necessities. But in fact, there are 9,000 people here, Amna, and what you're going to see here is not just these buildings, which are the shelters, but you're going to see that there are so many people that there are makeshift tents here. People are sleeping outside in the elements. Children are among them. You can see they've used fabric to figure out a place to stay. UNHCR is heartbroken about this, as are all humanitarians in the area, because not only are these people who've fled war and persecution and seen violence and experienced trauma in great need, they are, really hoping for the world's compassion, Amna.
And Anne, have you been able to speak to any of the people or any of the families who've arrived there? Have they shared with you what they went through just to get to this camp?
That's right. One actually said that she had traveled for years. What has been happening is they are experiencing, in many cases, they tell me about being struck with aerial bombs, being in areas that are being bombed from the sky, running with their children, not always able to grab all of their children. There was a woman we spoke to who carried her mother, her elderly mother, on her back because she was aging, and ran with 4 kids and keeping them all in line to leave as the bombs were falling. And she said that her mom eventually died. And so that's the story we're hearing. People did not want to leave Sudan. What they wanted is to find a safe place, and then they couldn't find a safe place, and so they ended up having to cross the border and come here.
So you've mentioned the impact of the funding cuts, there not being enough support on the ground. What does the future hold for these families, and is there any hope for more international intervention?
Well, there are movements, but there isn't any clear sense that the funding will come. I think that there is a real wish that the world will know that people here exist and will care about their suffering, even in this time when we are distracted by so much else in the world, that we will know that these people matter. We've also been able to document and speaking to these survivors, that some have described not only seeing with their own eyes people being killed on the streets and running, but one told us today she witnessed sexual violence upon women and was herself a victim. And this was in an attack. So I think the atrocities, when the full story is told about what is exactly happening in Sudan, and we should probably also mention that there is a tremendous famine occurring in several parts of the country that has reached acute levels, and that in some areas more than 50% of the children are at such acute levels that there is fear that they could succumb. So hope is hard to find, but the ultimate hope is in us, is in the people in the outside world, and whether we have the capacity, the compassion still within us to care for people who are suffering the most in the world, or at least one should say in the largest humanitarian disaster in the world.
And we're so grateful to you for helping to make sure that we can all bear witness along with you. That is Ann Curry reporting from the South Sudanese border. Ann, thank you.
Thanks, Amna.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.
Spam mails taking over your inbox? Switch to Zoho Workplace, the email suite with an award-winning spam blocker. Zoho Workplace.
As a Labour Home Secretary, it is my job to ask, with those values in mind, what should our migration system look like? Well, it would surely start with levels of migration that are first and foremost fair. Fair to those living in this country today, particularly the working class communities whose plight has always energized this party above all others. Fair to also to those seeking a new and better future in this country, with skills to bring and a contribution to make. And what of our asylum system? It would surely mean delivering the noble intentions of the drafters of the original 1951 Refugee Convention, providing safety to genuine refugees, shelter from the storm until they are able to return safely home. That, as the convention clearly states, the right to protection must come alongside a responsibility to live by the laws and values of this land. And finally, that our asylum system is not abused by unscrupulous people smugglers who profit from false promises and trade in human misery. Take all that together, and you find that Labour values applied to our migration sit at neither extreme. They are no invitation to the fairy tale of open borders, as Zach Polanski's revolutionary Green Party demands, and neither are they the nightmare of Nigel Farage, pulling up the drawbridge and shutting out the world, narrowing our proud patriotism into a crude ethno-nationalism. Between those two extremes, there is ample space for a migration system that is fair, but where it needs to be, firm. There can be both compassion and control in a system that rewards contribution and those who play by the rules. Against that bar, how does migration and asylum in this country fare today? Are we living up to those values? The answer, quite clearly, is no. We are not even close. On legal migration, Zach Polanski provides the rhetoric, but it was the Tories who provided the living experiment of open borders. Between 2021 and the 2024 general election, they oversaw net migration of 2.5 million. To put that in some context, at least 1 in every 30 people in the UK today arrived in that time. In just 4 years, this country experienced levels of migration it had previously seen across 4 decades. It was not just the scale, but also the nature of that change that was so destabilizing. This was most evident in the scandal of lowering the skills requirements for some of those who arrived on the health and social care visa. As we now know, fraud was rife, with phony care providers created to draw people to this country on a false promise of work. Absent action, over the next 5 years, some 350,000 low-skilled workers and their dependents will qualify for settlement. At that point, they will gain access to welfare, free healthcare, and social housing. We must be honest about the scale of this. We have never, in this country, in the history of this country, had so much low-skilled migration in so little time. We estimate, based on findings from the Migration Advisory Committee, that the lifetime cost to the taxpayer will be £10 billion. That figure would be paid for by working people in this country. It would mean ever longer waits for the 1.3 million people in this country on the social housing list, and yet more pressure placed upon our National Health Service. It is an affront to the idea of fairness within our migration system. Our asylum system is no closer to embodying Labour values. Criminal gangs are profiting from their vile trade in human beings. People have travelled the world with untold suffering in the process, and over 180 people have died in those final miles across the Channel. Our own system has faced immense pressure. Since the small boats first arrived, nearly 200,000 people have come to this country across the Channel. Today, over 100,000 people live in asylum accommodation paid for by the taxpayer. And this includes both those awaiting an asylum claim or an appeal, and also thousands who have failed their claims but cannot be returned to their home country. The pressure on the taxpayer is vast. Last year alone, £4 billion was spent on asylum accommodation. And I can tell you, as someone with 3 asylum hotels in my own constituency, that the pressure on local communities is considerable. It is worth pausing on that thought, on what this system looks like to those outside of rooms like these. Hardworking people across this country engaged in the daily struggle to make ends meet. They see a state that they pay taxes towards, yet it is proving unable to stop a flow of dinghies across the Channel. And they see a state that is paying billions towards hotels like the one near them. It doesn't look fair because it's not fair, and it erodes their trust in government. That erosion in trust matters because people ask fairly, if we cannot deal with so visible a failure, what can the state achieve at all? It is our creed as the Labour Party that the state can and must be a force for good. Without the trust of citizens in the state, there is no space for Labour values in any part of government to be realised. Restoring order and control at our border is not a betrayal of Labour values. It is the necessary condition for a Labour government to achieve anything it hopes to. It is within that context that I am embarking on some of the most significant reforms to migration, both legal and asylum, in a generation. On legal migration, that means ensuring we are attracting those who can and will contribute to this country, that migration levels are manageable, so we are attracting high-skilled workers, while at the same time introducing new controls to migration routes, which has now seen net migration fall by nearly 70%. For those who come to this country, who can contribute to our national life, I am clear. They should have a path to settlement and ultimately citizenship. I want people to put down roots in this country and to contribute to our national life. But it is essential that the privilege of living in this country forever is earned and not automatic. We are currently reviewing the responses to our consultation on the new rules around settlement. But let me be clear about the principles that we put into that consultation. First, the qualifying period for settlement should move as a norm from
any US war effort in operations targeting Iran. It has to be stressed because France, again, wants to be. Why? Because France has got bases in the area, in the Gulf region. It also has strong partners, allies, such as the United Arab Emirates. It has a defense agreement with that monarchy, as well as with other monarchies in the Gulf, Qatar, and also cooperation agreements with Saudi Arabia, with Jordan, Iraq, and so on. Take the United Arab Emirates. In Abu Dhabi, France has its largest base, 900 soldiers and civilians. And under the terms of the agreement, well, France has to help bring assistance to the United Arab Emirates in case of a foreign aggression. And this is what's happening. So France indeed is acting. What is it doing? It's patrolling, protecting, if you will, the skies above that area when there are drone attacks from Iran. And it has already brought down Iranian drones. But France is saying we will not attack targets or aim for targets on Iranian soil. That would be an aggressive approach. And that's also what Tehran's saying, very much saying, don't attack us on our own soil. That's a red line.
And France still engaging in diplomacy in some ways. The French Foreign Minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, has been on the phone to the Iranian Foreign Minister, hasn't he?
The French Foreign Ministry telling us that it's the Iranian minister who called Jean-Noël Barrot. We don't know what the Iranians said or asked for. What we do know is that Jean-Noël Barrot repeated that he condemns the Iranian attacks in the region, saying they're unacceptable, also saying that he is calling for renewed diplomatic efforts to end the violence and also calling for de-escalation. Paris calling for de-escalation. One word on Lebanon, very important. Lebanon also a strong ally of France, strong cultural, historic ties. France is trying to act there also. Last night, President Macron spoke to US President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying, do not invade, calling the Israelis not to invade Lebanon, saying it would be a serious mistake. Do not do that. Will he be heard? Worth pointing out also that in Lebanon, why is Lebanon caught into this? Because Hezbollah has been firing rockets at Israel. Israel responded back, of course, with these massive airstrikes. A lot of people in Lebanon have been condemning Hezbollah. The government has banned the military branch of Hezbollah, saying also they need to lay down arms. And the Justice Minister of Lebanon on France 24, on France 24, well, told us that Hezbollah is being irresponsible here and plunging Lebanon always more into crisis.
Okay, thanks very much. Clovis Casali there with that look at the French position on all of this. Well, it is now day 6 of this war. On Saturday, of course, the US and Israel launched those strikes on Iran. And now those strikes widening, more and more countries becoming involved. Catherine Villette now takes a look at the reactions and the military deployments since Saturday.
6 days after military action against Iran, Canada has not ruled out taking part in the conflict, but only in a defensive capacity.
And we're not party to those actions, but we will always defend Canadians. We will always stand by and defend our allies when called upon.
The Canadian Prime Minister spoke during a visit to Australia alongside his counterpart, Anthony Albanese, who said he wants to see the objectives achieved.
I also want to see a removal of the ongoing threat that has been there for such a long period of time of Iran endangering peace and security and stability, not just in its own region, but here in Australia, of course.
Germany also supports the American and Israeli action. Friedrich Merz at the White House on Tuesday said he was on the same page as the United States, but stated a plan is needed for what comes after. This comes as many EU countries, including France, say they are sending military assets to the region, but for defensive purposes only, to support their allies that have come under fire, including NATO member Cyprus, which was targeted by 2 Iranian drones on Monday.
Maritime security, we are extremely worried about this, and that's why also European naval assets have been sent to the region, because the security of the Strait of Hormuz and the trade routes is extremely important also for European Union, but also for the Gulf countries.
The UK Prime Minister, too, says British warships and combat helicopters are on their way to protect their military base in Cyprus.
Okay, well, we are going to take a short break. Do stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes.
To understand the world, you need to be immersed in it. From Jakarta to Beirut, by way of Kinshasa, Kyiv and Washington, France 24